What happens when a seasoned TV host known for dismantling her opponents is confronted by an 18-year-old who refuses to be underestimated? America was about to find out. The atmosphere in the studio was electric, charged with a mix of curiosity and tension as the bright lights cast a professional sheen over the sleek modern set of The Daily Show. This was no ordinary night. Natalie Anderson, the seasoned host known for her sharp political jabs and relentless questioning, had a high-profile guest, Barron Trump, the youngest son of former President Donald Trump. The audience buzzed with anticipation. Natalie, famous for her ability to dismantle and mock conservative figures, had her sights set on Barron. For her, he was an easy target, young, privileged, and new to the media spotlight. Tonight, she aimed to turn him into a punchline for her viewers' amusement. Yet Barron Trump was not as naive as Natalie assumed. Despite his minimal public presence, recent appearances had hinted at a quiet intelligence and an unshakable composure. Natalie, however, was unimpressed. She had meticulously planned the interview to appear friendly on the surface. But beneath the pleasantries lay strategic condescension designed to provoke missteps and embarrassment. The cameras rolled, and the studio erupted in applause. Natalie's confident smile radiated as she extended a hand to welcome Barron to the stage. As he emerged, the room seemed to shift. Standing at an imposing 6, Barron towered over her. He walked with a calm, measured stride, exuding a poise far beyond his years. The contrast between his steady demeanor and Natalie's performative energy was stark. He took his seat with effortless grace, crossing one leg over the other and adjusting his suit with a natural confidence. Natalie's trademark mischievous grin widened. This was her moment to set the tone. Well, we have a Trump on my show. I didn't think that would ever happen, she quipped, drawing laughter from the audience. Barron returned a polite smile but said nothing, refusing to take the bait. Natalie leaned forward, eyes gleaming with playful malice. Welcome, Barron. This is your first big sit-down interview, isn't it? Barron inclined his head slightly. It is. Natalie's smirk deepened. Nervous, she teased, expecting him to fidget or falter. The audience chuckled, assuming the young Trump was out of his depth. Barron tilted his head, meeting her gaze without a hint of discomfort. Not at all. For a brief moment, Natalie's smile faltered, her confidence wavering just enough for the camera to catch it. She cleared her throat, brushing off the unexpected response. Well, she continued, I think people are fascinated by you. I mean, come on, you're 18, you're ridiculously tall, and you come from that family. It's like you were made in a political laboratory. The audience laughed again, expecting Barron to squirm under the spotlight. Instead, he calmly nodded. I suppose that's one way to look at it, he replied smoothly. Natalie's grin tightened. She had anticipated an easy victory, but Barron remained shaken. This interview was not going according to plan. Determined to regain control, she flipped through her notes and prepared to escalate the challenge. The battle of wits had only just begun. Natalie leaned forward with a calculated smirk, ready to probe deeper. So tell me, Barron, she said smoothly, her voice tinged with subtle condescension. Growing up in Trump Tower, attending private schools, and going on luxury vacations, did you ever feel like you were in a bit of a bubble? Like you weren't really seeing what real life is like? The audience murmured with anticipation, sensing a classic trap. If Barron said no, he'd appear entitled and detached from reality. If he said yes, he'd be admitting to his privilege, playing right into Natalie's narrative. All eyes were on him, waiting for a fumble. If you find these stories inspiring and they motivate you to take action, please comment 9. If not, comment 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Thank you for your valuable time. But Barron didn't blink. He met Natalie's gaze, his face calm and unreadable. Everyone grows up in a bubble, Miss Anderson, he said matter-of-factly. The studio fell silent. Natalie blinked, momentarily thrown off balance. Oh, she managed, tilting her head slightly, the smugness slipping from her expression. Really? Barron nodded. Your childhood, for example, was probably very different from mine. Why does that mean you're out of touch with how I grew up? The audience let out a collective ooh-woo, sensing the power shift. Natalie's eyes widened slightly as her mind scrambled for a response. He had effortlessly flipped the question back on her. Well, Natalie began, trying to recover her footing. I wasn't exactly flying in private jets as a kid, Barron shrugged. And I wasn't hosting late night talk shows. Every life is unique. I don't think anyone fully understands someone else's reality unless they've lived it. The audience burst into unexpected applause. Natalie's lips twitched into a forced smile as she laughed along, though the tension was palpable. She was starting to lose control of the narrative. Okay, she said, her voice a bit tighter than before. I see you came prepared. But let's talk about something a bit more controversial. She flipped a card dramatically, casting a glance at the audience as if building suspense. Your dad. The crowd perked up, sensing the moment they had been waiting for. Natalie leaned in, her tone playful but pointed. I have to ask, Barron. Growing up with a father as, let's say, outspoken as Donald Trump, did you ever feel embarrassed by some of the things he said? The audience erupted into laughter, fully expecting Barron to squirm, dodge, or hesitate. But instead, he leaned forward slightly, a subtle smile playing on his lips. Did you ever feel embarrassed by some of the things Joe Biden said? He asked, his voice calm and steady. The room went dead silent. Natalie's smirk vanished as if wiped away by an invisible hand. The audience gasped softly, unsure of how to react. Barron sat perfectly still, his gaze cool and unflinching. Natalie let out a forced chuckle, her composure faltering. Well, that's different, she stammered, her confidence cracking. Barron shrugged again. Is it? The audience exploded into cheers and applause. Natalie stiffened in her seat, gripping her note cards tightly. For the first time in her career, she was losing control of the conversation, and it was obvious to everyone. The crowd sensed a shift in power. All right, Natalie said, forcing a strained smile. Let's not get too political here. This is a fun show, right, guys? The audience laughed nervously, aware that the interview had veered wildly off course. Barron leaned back in his chair, relaxed and unbothered as Natalie fumbled to regain control. But deep down, she and everyone in the studio knew that the narrative had already slipped from her grasp. An 18-year-old had just outmaneuvered one of the most seasoned hosts on television. Natalie adjusted her posture, forcing a tight smile. She wasn't ready to back down. This interview was supposed to show Barron Trump out of his depth, not in control. Okay, she said, chuckling lightly. You got me with that one. But let's move on. She glanced at her cue card, searching for an opening. Then she leaned forward with a glint in her eye. All right, Barron, let's be real. Your father was one of the most controversial presidents in history. His policies, his tweets, let's just say he wasn't known for subtlety. The audience chuckled, sensing the trap. Barron, however, stayed calm, merely raising an eyebrow. Natalie grinned. Even his supporters cringed at some of the things he said. Be honest, was there ever a moment where you thought, Dad, maybe you should just stop talking? The audience erupted in laughter, expecting Barron to squirm. Instead, he leaned forward, locking eyes with Natalie. Are we judging presidents by what they say, he asked quietly, or by what they do? The laughter died instantly. Natalie blinked, caught off guard. Well, words matter, don't they? Barron tilted his head slightly. Sure, but actions matter more. If we judge every leader in history solely by their worst words, we'd have to erase a lot of people from the history books. The audience let out a collective ooh. Natalie's laugh was tight and forced. All right, Barron, the first see what you're doing. But let's be honest, you've lived your whole life in wealth and privilege. How can you possibly understand what the average American goes through? It was a pointed question designed to corner him. But Barron remained unfazed. I could ask the same about you, Miss Anderson. He replied smoothly. The audience gasped and burst into cheers. Natalie's expression tightened. Excuse me? Let's be real, Barron continued. You've worked in media for years. You live in an expensive city, probably have a team of assistants, and you're sitting in a chair that costs more than what some people make in a month. The audience roared with applause. Natalie's face flushed, but she forced another laugh. All right, Barron. The first will give you that one, she said through clenched teeth. But tell me, do you actually want to go into politics, or are you just riding your father's legacy? The question hung in the air, but Barron remained calm, offering a small smile. The balance of power in the room had already shifted. Everyone could feel it. Natalie's question was a trap, carefully designed to reduce Barron to a mere extension of his father's legacy. But Barron saw it coming. He let out a subtle sigh, as if he had anticipated it all along. People assume I'm just here because of my last name, he began, his voice calm and measured. But the truth is, no one really knows what I stand for yet. That's the funny part. People love to make assumptions about me before I even open my mouth. Natalie leaned forward, ready to respond, but Barron didn't give her the chance. "You asked if I want to go into politics," he continued, his gaze unwavering. "But the better question is, why does the media assume I have to?" For a moment, Natalie froze, caught entirely off guard. The audience erupted into applause, louder and more intense than before. Some viewers even rose to their feet in a spontaneous standing ovation. Natalie's smile faltered, her eyes betraying her struggle to regain control. She was rattled, and everyone could see it. The energy in the room had shifted. Barron Trump, the guest who was supposed to be mocked and outmaneuvered, had flipped the entire script. He now commanded the stage with quiet authority. Natalie forced a smile, though her frustration was barely hidden. "Well, Barron, this has been interesting." Barron chuckled softly. "Glad you think so." The audience laughed again, fully aware of what had just transpired. Natalie let out a dramatic sigh, shaking her head. "All right, fine. I'll admit it, you handled yourself well." Barron nodded politely. "Appreciate it." As the cameras began to fade out, the last image viewers saw was Natalie muttering to herself in disbelief, while Barron sat calmly, looking completely unbothered. Within hours, the clip exploded across the internet. Social media buzzed with headlines like "Barron dominates Natalie Anderson on The Daily Show," and hashtags like "Future Trump and Barron owns Natalie" trended nationwide. Comment sections were filled with astonishment. He didn't just hold his own, he owned that interview. News outlets quickly picked up the story, analyzing how an 18-year-old had outclassed one of the most seasoned hosts on television. And Natalie? She had to face the harsh reality that she had just become the latest in a long line of public figures to underestimate Barron Trump. The confrontation between Natalie Anderson and Barron Trump became a quintessential moment of truth that resonates deeply with American values, facing challenges head-on, defying stereotypes, and earning respect. In a culture that reveres free speech and believes anyone can overcome adversity, this moment struck a powerful chord with viewers. Barron entered the show carrying all the elements that invite doubt: youth, privilege, and a controversial family name. Yet, in true underdog fashion, he not only rose to the challenge but seized control of the narrative. This resonated with the American dream itself: no one has the right to limit your potential based on where you come from. His question, "Are we judging presidents by what they say or by what they do?" became a defining mic drop moment, plunging the room into stunned silence. In a nation shaped by leaders like Lincoln and Roosevelt, Americans understand that actions, not words, ultimately define leadership. Barron's remark was a wake-up call, reminding the audience that in an era of misinformation and media bias, real outcomes matter more than superficial critiques. But Barron didn't stop there. He flipped the interview on its head with a perfectly executed reverse Uno card. When Natalie implied he couldn't grasp the struggles of ordinary Americans, Barron struck back with a sharp question of his own. "And what about you?" It wasn't just a clever retort, it was a challenge to Americans everywhere to reflect on their own biases. Everyone, regardless of status, can live in a bubble shaped by personal experience. His words spoke to a core American truth: understanding others requires stepping outside your world and into theirs. This exchange serves as a powerful reminder that no one, not even a young man like Barron, should ever be underestimated. In a country where anyone has the right to stand up and make a difference, Barron Trump demonstrated that confidence, truth, and intellect can shatter even the most deeply ingrained stereotypes. This wasn't just Barron's personal victory, it was a triumph for the American ideal, one that urges all of us to uphold and celebrate the values of courage, fairness, and opportunity.